Chapter 675. The Eastern Shallow Ocean was vast, almost one-fifth of true spirit continent. Dragon God Celestial Palace was the most powerful force in the Eastern Shallow Ocean, so its territory was naturally the largest as well. Teleporting from the Teleportation Hall to the Azure Dragon Hall couldn't be done in an instant. A certain amount of time was required. On a huge island 15 million li away from the Dragon God Celestial Palace, towering buildings rose and fell one after another. These buildings were mostly cyan-colored. Looking down from the sky, they looked like the scales of an azure dragon, reflecting a unique radiance under the sunlight. All the buildings gathered together, looking like a coiling azure dragon. This island was called Azure Dragon Island, and the force on the island was precisely the head of the Dragon God Celestial Palace's 5 great halls. Azure Dragon Hall. Inside a palace in the core region of Azure Dragon Hall, the remaining 2 deputy leaders were waiting, accompanied by dozens of great attendants. Apart from the leader, all the higher-ups of Azure Dragon Hall had arrived, waiting for the new deputy leader of Dragon God Celestial Palace. They knew that this new deputy leader was certainly not ordinary, and might even be a hidden expert of Dragon God Celestial Palace. Therefore, they had to cooperate and give him sufficient attention. Brother Wu, who do you think the higher-ups will send this time? One of the deputy leaders asked the deputy next to him. The deputy surnamed Wu analyzed. Strength too low, not enough to convince the masses. Strength too high, not many. Could it be the eldest core disciple Lin Songhai, or the second disciple Li Feng? Lin Songhai's strength is enough, but one can't rely on personal strength in war. One must have a certain level of leadership. In this aspect, Lin Songhai is quite unique. As for Li Feng, honestly speaking, although he looks amiable on the surface, he's actually quite arrogant and condescending. If these two are impossible, then it should be an expert we don't know about. I think so too. They're coming. As the two spoke, the teleportation gate at the center of the palace lit up. Along with a whirlpool of light, dozens of figures appeared. Seeing the dozens of people in front of them, it would be impossible for them not to be astonished. They had thought of everything, except for the fact that they were all youngsters. The oldest among them was Lin Songhai, who seemed to be in his 30s. Lin Songhai, congratulations. Stunned for a moment, Vice Palace Master Wu revealed a smile. Although Lin Songhai was a loner and wasn't suitable to be a Vice Palace Master, since it was the will of the Elders Guild, they naturally wouldn't oppose it. Furthermore, leadership ability could be cultivated. Perhaps Lin Songhai would be able to adapt to the position of Vice Palace Master. Lin Songhai, we will be colleagues from now on. The other Vice Palace Master said with a smile. Lin Songhai was somewhat baffled by the two's words, but he was after all a perceptive person, and quickly understood, saying indifferently, I'm not. Chen Yusin hurriedly came to the rescue and said, You two have misunderstood. This is Senior Brother Yi Chen, who is about to take over as Vice Hall Master. This one is? The 2 Vice Hall Masters were a little embarrassed. In fact, they couldn't be blamed. They were used to being prejudiced by first impressions, coupled with the fact that they were all young people. They subconsciously ignored Yi Chen, who looked the youngest, and regarded Lin Songhai as the leader of the group of young people. After all, they only had time to glance at everyone's appearance. This one is Yi Chen said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. The two's gazes converged on Yi Chen's body, inwardly saying, so young. Although Yi Chen was already 26 years old, due to his rapid cultivation-based advancement, he had entered astral-reaching realm only a year later than Xianhou, and entered Sea of Soul realm a year earlier than Xianhou. Therefore, he still looked to be in his early 20s. If one overlooked his aura, they would easily see him as a young genius who had just left home. However, they clearly wouldn't overlook Yi Chen's aura. If Lin Songhai was an unsheathed treasured sword, then Yi Chen was a peerless sword half unsheathed. He had a sharp edge, but was not overly ostentatious, giving off an unfathomable feeling. Good fellow. The two had been fighting with the experts of the 4 great forces for many years, so they were quite good at judging people. Lin Songhai's sharpness had indeed startled them, but Yi Chen's unfathomability made them even more apprehensive. This one is Wu Chuan, and this is Su Danian. The Vice Hall Master surnamed Wu introduced himself. Yi Chen faintly nodded and said, "We're already aware of Azure Dragon Hall's situation. This time, we've come to settle this matter. Now take us to Hall Master Wei Longtao." His Vice Hall Master's command token needed to be taken from the latter's hands. Otherwise, it wouldn't be justifiable. "Alright, come with me." Wu Chuan and Su Danian turned around and led Yi Chen and the rest out. Passing through the crowd, Yi Chen saw Yao Yifeng, who was the head attendant. However, Yao Yifeng's eyelids were drooping, pretending not to see Yi Chen. At this moment, Yao Yifeng's mind was in chaos as he mumbled to himself. How can it be him? How could he have become a Vice Hall Master? It's been less than 2 years, he can't possibly have the strength of a Vice Hall Master. Azure Dragon Hall's Vice Hall Master is already not much weaker than Yellow Dragon Hall's Zhang Zhengguang. His strength is definitely not that high. Sending him here is probably another trick from above, wanting him to temper himself. After Yao Yifeng arrived at Azure Dragon Hall, he was no longer clear about the matters of True Spirit Continent, nor did he know about Yi Chen's achievements in the past 2 years. Therefore, he believed that even if Yi Chen's strength had increased by a lot, it would still be impossible for him to reach the level of Azure Dragon Hall's Vice Hall Master. It should be known that Azure Dragon Hall was the head of the 5 great halls, and its average battle strength was much higher than the other 4 halls. Moreover, Yellow Dragon Hall was publicly acknowledged as the weakest. Only after Yi Chen walked out of the hall did Yao Yifeng raise his eyelids and coldly glanced at Yi Chen. The Azure Dragon Hall Master was a serious-looking middle-aged man. He wore a light green robe with an azure dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws embroidered on it. On his right thumb, there was an emerald green thumb ring. This thumb ring was extremely large, about the size of a wine cup. "Greetings, Hall Master Wei." Yi Chen, Lin Songhai and the rest spoke. Wei Longtao sized up Yi Chen with a doubtful gaze. He had already recognized Yi Chen as the genius favored by Palace Master Dragon King. However, the latter's cultivation base was merely at the peak of mid-sea of Soul Realm. Even if his aura seemed a bit deep and immeasurable, he shouldn't be able to suppress Lin Songhai and become the person in charge this time. As for the matters of True Spirit Continent, he had long since stopped caring about them. Being able to recognize Yi Chen at a glance meant that he was paying enough attention. "This is your Vice Hall Master's command token." Wei Longtao didn't say anything else, and took out a little Azure Dragon command token from his storage ring. He exerted a bit of force and threw it toward Yi Chen. Receiving the little Azure Dragon command token, Yi Chen casually glanced at it, before putting it away in his storage ring. Wei Longtao then said, "Lin Songhai, Chen Yus and Luo Yunsong, I appoint you 3 as head attendants. You'll listen to Yi Chen's command. The rest will all be battle attendants, also under Yi Chen's command." The position of head attendants in Azure Dragon Hall was second only to the Vice Hall Master, and battle attendants were usually Sea of Soul Realm Taoists. Although only Yi Chen's group of 4 had Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, and the rest were late astral reaching realm, the disciples of Dragon God Celestial Palace couldn't be compared to ordinary members of Azure Dragon Hall. Giving them the status of battle attendants wasn't excessive. In any case, they were only here to temper themselves and wouldn't stay for long. Yes, Lin Songhai, Chen Yusen, and the rest didn't have any objections. Hall Master Wei, deputy whose troops were almost completely annihilated. Only a dozen or so people remain. I'll need to reorganize them. Yi Chen said, "You don't need to worry about this. The new troops have already been gathered. Altogether, 350 people, 40 Sea of Soul Realm, and 310 Astral Reaching Realm. You can rest for today. Tomorrow, I'll send someone to tell them to wait at the drill ground. You can get to know them then." "Alright, then Yi Chen will take his leave first." Yi Chen's group left. Once Yi Chen and the rest left, Wei Longtao creased his brows. Could it be that the higher-ups think that sending 1 Yi Chen and 3 core disciples can solve the problem? He didn't understand. The next day, in the morning, on the east side of the drill ground, 350 people were gathered. Standing at the front were 40 people. all of whom had Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. Among them, there were even 4 late Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, consisting of 1 woman and 3 men. Hey, what kind of person do you think the new deputy is? A middle-aged woman with an enchanting figure stretched her back and chuckled. The robust man beside the middle-aged woman said, "It'd be best if he's stronger than us. Otherwise, I won't accept it." Hee hee, you can rest assured. The higher-ups can't possibly send someone weaker than you. At the very least, he should be at the same level as Deputy Hu. No, he should be much stronger than Deputy Hu. Otherwise, there would be no need for the higher-ups to send someone. They could just directly pick someone from the Azure Dragon Hall. The middle-aged scholar with a long beard shook his head. The middle-aged woman guessed, "Perhaps there's a traitor in the upper echelons of the Azure Dragon Hall. That's why the higher-ups personally sent someone." Hee hee, you'll all be disappointed. I know the new deputy. He's not as strong as you think. Moreover, he's a bit selfish and doesn't care about consequences. The last of the 4 said, "You know him? Yao Yifeng." The middle-aged woman revealed an astonished expression. Yao Yifeng was about to speak, but suddenly shut his mouth. In his line of sight, the blue-robed Yi Chun was leading a group of Dragon God Celestial Palace disciples. Lin Songhai wasn't among them. "Senior brother Yi, eldest senior brother is just like this. Don't mind him too much." Chen Yusen was still explaining Lin Songhai's actions. Yi Chun said, "You don't need to worry. I've already said that he can disobey my orders as long as it doesn't affect others." Yi Chen's objective this time was to help Azure Dragon Hall salvage the situation. Whether Lin Songhai listened or not had nothing to do with him, and he couldn't be bothered to care. In any case, it didn't matter if Lin Songhai's strength was no weaker than the second elders. Of course, if they suffered losses because of him, he couldn't be blamed. Chapter 676. This is the new deputy? Including the middle-aged woman, everyone was flabbergasted. No matter how one looked at him, he looked like he was in his early 20s. His real age should be around 26 or 27. Such a young man was unexpectedly the newly appointed deputy, which somewhat caught them off guard. What the hell are the higher-ups doing? Sending a brat over? His cultivation base is not bad, but it's not at the level of deputy. Letting a brat lead us will only lead us to a quick death. Even if I offend him, I'll make him understand. Let's observe the situation first. Perhaps there's a mistake. Everyone discussed spiritedly through Zhen Yuan transmission. Yao Yifeng sneered, waiting for Yi Chun to make a fool of himself. This was not the headquarters, where everyone was thinking about how to preserve their lives. A deputy who wasn't strong enough wouldn't be able to obtain everyone's support. If Yi Chun didn't display sufficient strength, he wouldn't be able to sit firmly in his position, even if he was sent by the higher-ups. The drill ground was huge, and a gale was blowing fiercely. Yi Chun walked 30 steps in front of the crowd and stopped. Chen Yusen and the rest consciously moved to the side, forming the second camp. Slightly raising his head, Yi Chen's gaze swept around. When he passed by Yao Yifeng, he didn't deliberately stop, letting nature take its course. This formation was not bad. Not counting Chen Yusen and the rest, among the 40 Sea of Soul Realm experts, 4 had late Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, 15 had mid Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, and 21 had early Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. Such a powerful force had already surpassed peak 6th grade sections. Any 6th grade sect would not be their opponent, and they would be able to sweep through them. "I'm called Yi Chun, the new deputy. I believe you have a lot to say, so say it now. I won't look into your words and deeds, but if you don't speak now, don't blame me for being ruthless in the future." Yi Chun knew that his prestige was still not enough, and these people would definitely not listen to him. Therefore, he had to solve this problem once and for all, in case something went wrong in the future. With his power, if he could not even solve this problem, then he could just leave. Everyone looked at each other. They did not expect Yi Chun to be so straightforward. The middle-aged woman cleared her throat and said, "Deputy Palace Lord Yi, I'm Xing Malian. I'd like to ask, how old are you?" 26. Yi Chun replied. So young. Although they didn't want to accept Yi Chun as the deputy, Yi Chen's talent was enough to make them sigh in admiration. After all, having a cultivation base at the peak of mid-sea of Soul Realm, at the age of 26, was simply unheard of in the Eastern Shallow Ocean. It was no wonder that the higher-ups had sent him. The dark yellow axe aura formed an arc because of its extreme speed. Shaking his head, Yi Chen pointed his finger. Arrogant. Too arrogant. Seeing Yi Chen fighting with only one finger, everyone frowned. Yao Yifeng even sneered. This muscular man was called Jiang Hanliang. Although he was weaker than him, he wasn't that much weaker. Plus, his weapon was a giant axe which had a powerful attack power. Even if an expert at the same level used a weapon, they might not be able to win, not to mention a finger. Only Chen Yusin was not surprised. She had seen Yi Chen defeat her second senior brother Li Feng with only one finger. Jiang Hanliang was obviously angrier. He pushed his strength to the limit and chopped out with his axe. The wind and clouds changed. Lose. The axe soon arrived in front of Yi Chen. Creak. Yi Chen's finger and the axe aura collided. Shockingly, this indestructible axe aura immediately fell apart when it came into contact with Yi Chen's finger. It was as fragile as tofu. Then, the tip of his finger touched the giant axe's blade. The axe's blade quickly twisted and curled, making a teeth-aching metal sound. Bang! Finally, Jiang Hanliang could no longer hold the giant axe. His hand loosened, and the axe flew out, smashing a huge pit in the drill ground. As for Jiang Hanliang himself, he was one step slower than the giant axe. He was also sent flying, crashing into the crowd. How did he get here? And how did he go back? I wonder if you guys are satisfied with my strength. Since they didn't have enough prestige, Yi Chen needed to teach them a lesson. He was glad that someone came to find trouble with him. I'm not talented, but I'm here to learn from you. The middle-aged scholar on Xing Malian's right walked out. Yi Chen's strength was actually no weaker than Vice Leader Hu. However, it was still not enough. One had to know that Vice Leader, who had died under the siege of the four major forces. What was the point of sending someone with strength similar to Vice Leader Hu? Speed and Qinggong are my advantages, the middle-aged scholar reminded Yi Chen. Yi Chen nodded. Be careful, 100 changes of gale. The middle-aged scholar mainly cultivated the wind profound, and his movement technique had fused with the wind profound. His entire body had already lost its form, leaving behind only a formless gale. The gale was everywhere, fiercely attacking Yi Chen from every direction. It seemed as if 100 phantoms were attacking Yi Chen. This time, he definitely won't be able to finish the battle in a few moves. Yao Yifeng thought. The middle-aged scholar was called Yan Quan. In terms of movement technique, there were very few people who could match him. Even the leader of the Azure Dragon Hall might not be able to beat him. It should be known that among all the martial arts, movement technique was the hardest to integrate into profound, not to mention Yan Quan, who had studied profound movement technique to such a degree. Yi Chen smiled lightly. He did not need to compete in speed. Of course, if he were to compete in speed, he would be 5 streets ahead of him. But that would still not be enough to convince the crowd. Therefore, he only wanted to compete in observation and accuracy. Without even looking, he put up his right index and middle finger, and waved it in a slanted manner. Puff! Yan Quan seemed to have been knocked out of the void. Blood spurted out from the corner of his mouth. The clothes on his chest were torn, revealing the inner armor inside. With one finger, Yan Quan's Qinggong was immediately broken. It was an understatement. The wind was gentle. Hiss! Xing Malian sucked in a breath of cold air. She couldn't be any clearer about how powerful Yan Quan's movement technique was. There might be people in Azure Dragon Hall who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him, but there was absolutely no one who could surpass him. However, Yan Quan, who had such a high movement technique, couldn't even receive a single finger from Yi Chen. I accept it wholeheartedly. Yan Quan landed on the ground and said sincerely. Good, who else doesn't accept it? Yi Chen scanned around with his eyes. I'm convinced. After the shock, Xing Malian revealed an enticing smile. This was the first time she had seen such an outstanding youngster. He was only 26 years old, and his future path was bound to be glorious. If she could establish a relationship with him, even if she didn't have a meteoric rise, she would at least be taken care of. Why did they join the Azure Dragon Hall? It was to earn contribution points and obtain more resources. If she relied on herself, she could indeed obtain resources, but it might not be a lot, and it might not be what she wanted. However, Dragon God Celestial Palace was a peak 5th grade sect with abundant resources that ordinary people couldn't imagine. Whether she could advance further or not, she could only do so. Moreover, even if she didn't think for herself, she had to think for her family. Within the vast territory of Dragon God Celestial Palace, there were thousands of families, and their family was one of them. Damn it! How can this guy be so powerful? Yao Yifeng tightly clenched his fists. For the first time, he felt that the situation was out of his control. Slowly loosening his fists, an obscure cold light flickered in his eyes. Since that's the case, don't blame me. Deputy who will accompany you down there. Since no one speaks, it means there's no problem. However, I'll say the ugly words first. My orders must be obeyed by everyone. If you don't blame me for not giving you any face. Yi Chen's brows rose. His entire aura was like an unsheathed sword. The aura of destruction made everyone feel as if the end of the world had arrived. 10,000 swords pierced their bodies, making them feel numb. His strength is far more than this. Xing Melian held her breath. She realized that she had still underestimated Yi Chen. All right, who's willing to take me to understand the surrounding situation? Retracting his aura, Yi Chen asked. Xing Melian hesitated. Me. Yi Chen nodded his head. Everyone else dismissed. He continued to apologize to everyone. Seeing the scolding in the comments section, Taishu also knew that he was in the wrong. He would like to say that the typhoon blew for 2 days, the electricity was cut off for 1 day, and the internet was cut off for 2.5 days. Originally, he was ready to erupt, but in the end, it was messed up, causing his passion to slowly fade away. He was depressed and in a bad state of mind. Hence, 2 days after the typhoon, he stopped updating. Taishu dared to say that none of the reasons he gave in the past were fake. Without a reason, Taishu would irresponsibly stop updating. This was what Taishu felt guilty about. Everyone can scold Taishu for updating rubbish, but please don't scold liars. Because Taishu had never done that before. No matter what, if you did something wrong, you have to bear the consequences. Hence, Taishu would like to apologize to everyone. Also, because he had previously released a single chapter, Taishu could not avoid breaking the chapters. However, Taishu would try his best to write more when he could, so that the total word count wouldn't be too low after a month. Taishu had said that he would make up for the missing chapters. Today, he was starting to feel that way. With 2 chapters per day, there should be 60 chapters per month. From this month onwards, Taishu will strive to update 55 chapters per month. No one would treat a typhoon as a joke, so please don't think that Taishu was joking. This was a joke that Taishu could not afford to make. Finally, I would like to thank all my brothers and sisters for their support and understanding. Taishu was indeed unreliable at times, but Taishu always wanted to write well and write more. But this book, how should I put it? There were too many ideas. Sometimes just for a name, it would take half a day to think about it. In order to be unique, it would take a lot of brainpower. Of course, Taishu could understand the feelings of his brothers and sisters. Waiting for more chapters was not easy either. After saying so much nonsense, it was quite mentally taxing. Let's just leave it at that. I can't help but thank them again. I realize that I don't know how lucky I am. Chapter 677. Azure Dragon Hall was the first line of defense against the 4 hostile forces. Black Dragon Hall was 5 million li to the left, and Red Dragon Hall was 7 million li to the right. They could be considered the second line of defense. White Dragon Hall was in the middle of the 3 halls, and Dragon God Celestial Palace, the last line of defense. Usually, it would provide support to the 3 halls. In front of Azure Dragon Hall, there were 3 scout islands every 100,000 li. These 3 islands were arranged in a fan shape, and were quite far from each other. Generally speaking, a scout island would have 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts overseeing it, and 20 astral reaching experts. They didn't need to do anything other than patrolling twice a day. The rest of the time would be spent either cultivating, or searching for nearby resources. After all, the ocean had always been rich in resources, some of which couldn't be found on the continent. Moreover, they would receive a bountiful amount of spirit stones and medicinal pellets every month. 100,000 li had 3 scout islands, and 300,000 li would make 9, all of which were located in the periphery of Blood Battle Ocean. Blood Battle Ocean was located at the border of Dragon God Celestial Palace and the 4 hostile forces. From east to west, it was more than 23 million li, and from south to north, it was more than 4 million li. Blood Battle Ocean could be said to be the place with the richest resources in the eastern shallow ocean. There were thousands of large islands, hundreds of thousands of medium islands, and innumerable small islands, comparable to the stars in the sky. Blood Battle Ocean has already discovered more than 3,000 spirit veins. 1,000 are under our Dragon God Celestial Palace's control, while the other 2,000 have been divided among the 4 hostile forces. Xing Melian led Yi Chun as they flew around the periphery of Blood Battle Ocean and introduced 1,000. Yi Chun inwardly clicked his tongue. He didn't think that all of them were low-grade spirit veins. There were surely mid-grade spirit veins and even upper-grade ones. Xing Melian saw Yi Chun's expression and explained, 1,000 sounds like a lot, but it's actually not much compared to the Dragon God Celestial Palace. My Dragon God Celestial Palace has a population of 1,200,000. Among them, 500,000 are at the Qi Condensation Realm, 350,000 are at the Condensing Reality Realm, 150,000 are at the Clasping Yuan Realm, 30,000 are at the Astral Reaching Realm, and 2,000 are at the Sea of Soul Realm. Once a warrior reached the Condensing Reality Realm, he would need soul stones to train. Even if one person needed 100 low-rank soul stones a year, just the Condensing Reality Realm warriors would need 35 million low-rank soul stones. Adding the Clasping Yuan Realm warriors, it would need at least 300 million, maybe even 500 million. At the Astral Reaching Realm, one would need mid-grade spirit stones for cultivation, and the consumption would be more than 10 million. In fact, mid-grade spirit stones were the most insufficient, because at this level, one would have to pay them a salary, ranging from 100 per month to a few thousand per month. Adding it all up, it would be more than 1 or 200 million. If they already have so many in 1 year, then after 10 years, the amount of spirit stones consumed would be terrifying. Furthermore, it's impossible for a sect to not have a large reserve of spirit stones. Generally speaking, it's normal for a sect to have 50 years' worth of spirit stones, especially for a 5th-grade sect. Yi Chun faintly nodded. He already had a good understanding of Dragon God Celestial Palace. The difference between a 5th-grade sect and a 6th-grade sect was like the difference between Life and Death Realm and Sea of Soul Realm. Although it seemed like a difference of 1 grade, it was actually like the difference between heaven and earth. On the other hand, the difference between a 6th-grade sect and a lower-grade sect was like the difference between Sea of Soul Realm and Astral Reaching Realm. Take Yi family for example. Because of Yi Chun, many people had joined Yi family. At present, Yi family had 5,000 Qi Realm disciples, 2,000 Condensing Reality Realm disciples, several hundred Clasping Yuan Realm disciples, and only a few Astral Reaching Realm disciples. It was simply incomparable to a 5th-grade sect, and the amount of spirit stones consumed was also incomparable. It was like a drop in the ocean. Although having a big family business was glorious, its burden was also huge. It was easy for problems to arise, and the biggest problem was the problem of resources. As one of the top 5th-grade sects, the burden of Dragon God Celestial Palace was needless to say. Xing Melian continued. In the past, among these 3,000 spirit veins, my Dragon God Celestial Palace occupied 1,200. But in the past few years, 200 veins have been seized by the 4 hostile forces. The 2 passed by many islands on the way. On these islands, one could often see the mining workers of Dragon God Celestial Palace. Dragon God Celestial Palace and the 4 hostile forces had an agreement that the mining workers on the islands were not to be harmed. They were only mining resources, and it wouldn't affect either side. In the distance, the two saw a huge island. It was extremely barren with strange rocks everywhere. The surface of the rocks had a faint metallic luster. Xing Melian said, "This island is rich in black-veined iron, which can be smelted into black-veined iron. It's one of the best metals for forging top-notch weapons, and 1,000 gene of black-veined iron can be refined into 1 gene of black-veined iron. Black-veined iron is a kind of material for forging low-grade artifacts. It's extremely precious. My Dragon God Celestial Palace has artifact forgers who forge a large number of artifacts for the palace every year. A portion is left in the palace, and the rest is sold for spirit stones. This is also one of the income of a 5th-grade sect." Artifact forgers? This was the first time Yi Chen had heard of this title. Xing Melian brushed the hair on her forehead and said with a smile, "In ancient times, there were many ways to forge artifacts. But now most of them have been lost. Only a small portion of 5th-grade sects have them, and my Dragon God Celestial Palace is one of them. Otherwise, how could there be so many artifacts in the continent and the 4 shallow oceans? You should know that artifacts also have their own durability. Artifacts from too long ago simply can't be passed down." "You're right. Yi Chen's knowledge have been broadened. Selling artifacts can be said to be one of the biggest sources of income, second only to mining spirit veins. Therefore, the value of some rare metals is not below spirit stones. Some metals that can be used to forge upper-grade artifacts are even more valuable than upper-grade spirit stones of the same weight. Look, this island is rich in scarlet fire iron ores. Scarlet fire iron is even more valuable than black-veined iron. The refined scarlet fire iron contains fire-attributed energy, which can increase the offensive and fire attack of artifacts. Unfortunately, only 10,000 gene of scarlet fire iron can be refined into 1 gene of scarlet fire iron. In the past, Yi Chen only knew that the most important resources were spirit stones, pellets, or herbs. But now, he knew that apart from spirit stones and pellets, rare metals were also precious resources. Perhaps ordinary sects wouldn't be able to use them, but they could be sold to 5th-grade sections. Apart from rare metals, gems were also a kind of resource. Some gems contain powerful energy and could be used as spirit stones, or embedded in artifacts to increase offensive or defensive power. In short, there were all kinds of resources. The higher the grade of a sect, the more resources they required, and the more complex they were. Up ahead is the edge of the Blood Battle Ocean's core region. We might run into a large number of hostile forces. It's best not to go too deep. After traveling for 200,000 li, Xing Melian looked around and said to Yi Chen with a hesitant expression, "It's all right. You continue to take me around. I don't know much about the Blood Battle Ocean situation and the resources occupied by Dragon God Celestial Palace. It's necessary to clarify." As the deputy of Azure Dragon Hall, if he didn't know the resources occupied by Dragon God Celestial Palace, he wouldn't be qualified. As for encountering hostile forces, even if he couldn't win, he could easily escape. Moreover, without a certain number of people, it was hard to say who would kill who. This, Xing Melian regretted inwardly. Had she known earlier that Yi Chen was so curious, she wouldn't have volunteered. It should be known that the Blood Battle Ocean was different from other places. Either they didn't run into any enemies, or if they did, it would be in groups of at least dozens. Moreover, there were only 2 of them. Once they were surrounded, they wouldn't be able to escape. When the earth-shattering attacks arrived, they would be blasted into pieces in an instant. If I say it's all right, then it's all right. Don't worry. He had encountered several grave dangers, such as being chased by the 5 great experts in the Blood Demon battlefield, narrowly escaping with his life, and being chased by countless vicious beasts in the Bewilderment Fog Forbidden Zone. In comparison, as long as it wasn't a full-scale war, a small-scale war couldn't be considered dangerous. All right then. Let's agree. If anything goes wrong, we'll immediately retreat. Xing Melian said helplessly. Yi Chen chuckled. I value my life more than you do. That's true. Otherwise, you wouldn't have lived until now. Xing Melian herself could be considered a genius. Geniuses seemed to have a dazzling halo, but the dangers geniuses encountered were not something ordinary people could imagine. Since they were geniuses, they had to think of every possible way to increase their strength. They couldn't just muddle through. Thus, some dangerous ruins couldn't lack the shadows of geniuses. In short, talent was important, opportunity was important, and tempering was equally important. Ahead is the Black Smoke Island, where all kinds of gems are dug up. Among them, the most famous are the Black Smoke Gem, Double Star Gem, and Fish Scale Gem. Because of this island, my dragon god Celestial Palace, and the four great forces, have engaged in dozens of battles in the past 2 years. Each time many people died. Fortunately, this island is still under our control. Xing Melian didn't dare to relax too much. She released her soul power from time to time, scanning the surroundings. 500 to 600 li away, on an island, a group of experts with black octopus embroidered on their robes were entrenched here. With a rough glance, there were no less than 30 of them, 6 of them at Sea of Soul Realm, and 24 at Astral Reaching Realm. Head attendant. Suddenly, a figure flew toward the island. With a few flickers, he appeared at the center of the island. His face was filled with excitement, as if he had some good news. What's the matter? The fierce-looking man, who was resting, raised his head. Head attendant. There are 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts of Dragon God Celestial Palace near the island. One is a beautiful woman, and the other is a young man. The newcomer promptly said, "Beautiful woman." The fierce-looking man grinned, revealing an ugly smile. He was the head attendant of Black King Gate. He had 2 hobbies, killing and beauties. Among beauties, the one he liked the most was the charming woman. This kind of woman was the most enjoyable to play with, not to mention a lone Sea of Soul Realm expert. Did you send a spirit beast to track them? The fierce-looking man asked. Of course. The spirit beast of Black King Gate was a black octopus. In fact, the sect leader was a black octopus that had cultivated into a beast king. Therefore, black octopuses were spirit beasts of Black King Gate. Once a black octopus advanced to Sea of Soul Realm, its status would be even higher than a human of the same realm. Let's go. It's been a long time since I've killed someone. The fierce-looking man suddenly stood up, overflowing with killing intent. Haha, 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts. Won't it be a piece of cake? We have 6 on our side. The others were also excited. Sea of Soul Realm experts were not cabbages. Killing one would be one less. When they returned to the sect, they would be rewarded handsomely. Chapter 678. The Black Smoke Gem was a kind of translucent gem that emitted black chi. The Double Star Gem had 2 energy cores, and was the one with the most abundant energy. As for the Fish Scale Gem, it was just like its name, somewhat similar to a fish scale. This kind of gem could increase the defensive power of defensive armors. Unfortunately, the majority of the gems produced on this island were low-grade gems, with few mid-grade gems, and almost no upper-grade gems. Even so, the Dragon God Celestial Palace and the 4 enemy forces still attached great importance to this place. After all, only with a large amount of gems could they forge even better artifacts, which could greatly increase the disciples' survivability. The higher the survivability, the higher the chances of breaking through to the next realm. This was a virtuous cycle. Pa! On the island, Yichen gently smashed a huge boulder. Amidst the smoke and dust, a gem-emitting black chi fell down, sparkling brightly. Reaching out his hand, the gem landed on his hand. It was a bit prickly to the touch, not as smooth as its surface. Hee, your luck is not bad, being able to obtain a mid-grade black smoke gem so casually. Xing Melian tenderly laughed. Her plump waist and perfectly round buttocks twisted, looking exceptionally alluring. Yichen faintly smiled, but his brows suddenly creased. What's wrong? Xing Melian observed his expression and asked. Someone's coming. Don't tell me it's the enemy forces? Xing Melian's complexion changed. She tried her best to release her soul power, but the incoming people were too far away. More than 100 li, she couldn't detect them. Her Zhen Yuan suddenly circulated to the limit as she said to Yi Chun in a fluster. Still 100 li away, let's go quickly. Yi Chun shook his head and said, No rush, they don't have many people. You're not lying to me? For some reason, Xing Melian felt that his so-called not much and her own not much were vastly different. Even if I'm lying to you, we can't get rid of them. Yi Chen looked indifferent. Hearing these words, Xing Melian operated her Jin Yuan and sharpened her eyesight to the limit. In her line of sight, there were 10 enemies in each of the 3 directions. Among the 10, there were 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts. The lowest cultivation base was Mid-Sea of Soul Realm, while the highest was Peak Late Sea of Soul Realm. These people were only 100 li away from them, and would arrive in 10 breaths' time. Moreover, their clothes were embroidered with black octopus patterns. It's the Black King Gate. Xing Melian's face was pale. The Black King sect was a mixed sect of black octopuses and humans. With the human experts of the Black King sect, there would basically be 9th grade, or even 10th grade black octopuses. These black octopuses were not ordinary ones, but the royal race of black octopuses. They were commonly known as Black Kings, and the Black King sect was named after the royal race of black octopuses. 6 Sea of Soul Realm experts, 24 astral reaching experts, and an unknown number of 9th grade and 10th grade black octopuses. This was a very powerful force. The most infuriating thing was that Yi Chen didn't seem to care at all. They must have used the black octopuses as informants to figure out our whereabouts. Then they circled behind us, making it impossible for us to escape according to our original path. If we flee forward, we'll only go deeper and deeper into the core of Blood Battle Ocean, and it'll be easier for us to encounter more enemies. Xing Melian looked at Yi Chen, wanting to hear his opinion. After all, the only person she could rely on was Yi Chen. Yi Chen said, "How many contribution points would we get from killing 6 Sea of Soul Realm experts?" Xing Melian didn't know what Yi Chen was thinking, so she replied, "Killing an astral reaching expert is 50 contribution points. Sea of Soul Realm expert is 1,000. Sea of Soul Realm expert is 3,000, and head attendant is 5,000. If my guess is correct, among these 6 Sea of Soul Realm experts, there's 1 head attendant, 2 battle attendants, and 3 ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts. Altogether, it's 14,000 contribution points, which can be exchanged for a peak upper grade offensive artifact and a defensive artifact. Of course, it can also be exchanged for other things. You're not thinking of killing them, are you?" Xing Melian reacted and looked at Yi Chen in astonishment. "How are we going to split it between 2 people?" Yi Chen asked again. Xing Melian couldn't tell if Yi Chen was arrogant or just full of confidence. She said resentfully, "Dragon God Celestial Palace has a clear distribution. If the enemies are killed by everyone, the deputy's share is twice that of head attendant and 4 times that of battle attendants. In other words, you get 80%, and I get 20%. 20% is also not a small amount." Yi Chen didn't explain much. His right hand reached toward his waist and grasped the Thunder Disaster Sword's hilt. Clang! The Thunder Disaster Sword was unsheathed, and like a deep blue lightning, it expanded and contracted indefinitely. The instant he unsheathed the sword, the nearest enemies were already less than 30 li away from them. "Haha, you can't escape." One of the bald men laughed heartily. He wasn't in a hurry to attack, and his eyes revealed the expression of a cat toying with a mouse. "The ones who can't escape are you." Holding the Thunder Disaster Sword in his right hand, Yi Chen casually waved it. All of a sudden, the sky in front of him darkened, and a black crescent sword chi swallowed the bald man, and the 11 people behind him like a crack in the darkness that could devour all light, carrying an endless destruction intent. Puff! There was no blood splashing. These 12 people didn't even make a sound before directly disintegrating into ashes, leaving behind only a few upper-grade artifacts and 12 storage rings. As for the mid-grade artifacts held by the astral-reaching experts, they were all disintegrated just like their owners. 1 sword strike killed 2 Sea of Soul Realm experts and 8 astral-reaching experts. What? Xing Melian's face turned pale with fright. Before this, she already knew that Yi Chen's strength was extremely high and could instantly kill the majority of Sea of Soul Realm masters. However, killing 1 and killing 12 were 2 completely different concepts. Moreover, it was 30 li away. Xing Melian was astonished, But the remaining 20 people of the Black King sect were even more astonished. That bald man was a battle attendant of the Black King sect. From 30 li away, even some famous Sea of Soul Master Realm experts couldn't kill him in a second, let alone 10. Not good. Everyone gathered together and attacked together. The fierce-looking man's face turned grave as he shouted, "Shwa shwa shwa shwa." Streams of light flickered as the remaining two groups converged. Below, two huge black octopuses shot up, their demonic power covering the sky and covering the sun. They were countless times more powerful than Sea of Soul Realm experts of the same level. Merely in terms of the energy they contained, even 10-peak Sea of Soul Realm experts might not be able to compare to a 10th-grade black octopus. 4 Sea of Soul Realm experts, 2 10th-grade black octopuses, and 16 astral-reaching experts. If they joined hands, it would be enough to kill the majority of Sea of Soul Realm masters. Even the top 5 young tycoons would have to temporarily avoid them. After all, that fierce-looking man was a great attendant, and the demonic power of the 2 10th-grade black octopuses was even more frightening. When they joined hands, their might could be easily imagined. However, Yi Chen didn't stop them from converging. Instead, he waited for them. "We can't let them join hands." Xing Malian wasn't as calm as Yi Chen. She waved her hand, and her unique weapon, the Cold Moon Hook, shot out numerous arcs of light toward the opponents. She wanted to disrupt their formation and prevent them from joining hands. Pung 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 pung. Unfortunately, Xing Malian was a step too late. Before the arcs of light could approach the opponents, they were blocked by an invisible energy wall. This was a Zhen Yuan barrier jointly activated by the opponents. As soon as the arcs of light slashed down, ripples spread out, and the power dispersed. It didn't even have the qualifications to shake the Zhen Yuan barrier. "Attack!" The fierce-looking man waved his hand, and the 20 people and the 2 black octopuses launched a fierce attack at Yi Chen and Xing Malian. In the blink of an eye, the wind and clouds changed color and waves surged. Yi Chen didn't retreat, and once again slashed out. This slash contained the destruction sword intent. Not only was its attack powerful, it was also exceptionally condensed and had a devouring effect. Puff puff. The opponent's first round of attacks exploded midway. Too powerful. Xing Malian admitted that she had no idea what level Yi Chen's strength had reached. Every time, she thought that this was the opponent's strongest battle power. However, reality told her that this was only an ordinary attack. No wonder he's so confident. Who is he? Xing Malian was extremely curious about Yi Chen. She had never heard of such a frightening genius in the Eastern Shallow Ocean. My turn. Raising the Thunder Disaster Sword high up, black lightning gathered on the sword tip and gradually condensed into a black thunder ball. After the destruction sword intent reached the 5th step, the color of the thunder ball changed, becoming the same as the destruction sword spirit. Only Yi Chen knew that the nature of the thunder had changed, and it was now tainted with the destruction attribute. After all, the 5th step destruction sword intent was simply too powerful, and its power was equivalent to an ordinary 6th step sword intent. Full defense. The fierce-looking man had a bad premonition. The feeling that Yi Chen gave him was too dangerous. The Zhen Yuan barrier turned from incorporeal to tangible, and like a sky curtain, it hung down vertically, protecting the fiendish man's group and the 2 black octopuses. Kacha. As Yi Chen's sword descended, the whole world turned black. There were no stars and no light. Only a black thunderball cut through the dark sky and heavily collided with the Zhen Yuan barrier. In the next moment, a black brilliance erupted, and a huge black hole was formed. Pop! The Zhen Yuan barrier vanished like smoke, and the thunderball exploded. Berserk black lightning surged out. The fiendish man and the others simply didn't have time to dodge, and could only passively endure the violent lightning strike. When the black lightning dissipated, the group completely disappeared. Only the upper-grade artifacts and storage rings remained intact, falling down. Of course, the defense of the 2 black octopuses was also exceedingly powerful. Although their vitality had dissipated, their bodies didn't disappear. They turned into 2 huge pieces of charcoal and fell into the seawater. Making a grabbing motion with his left hand, The slightly damaged upper-grade artifacts and storage rings flew toward Yi Chen. These people's storage rings had tokens representing their identities. Ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts had ordinary tokens, while battle attendants and head attendants had tokens. Only by obtaining these tokens would one be able to exchange them for contribution points. Chapter 679. On the side, Xing Melian looked at Yi Chen, as if she was looking at a monster. 30 people and 2 10th-grade black octopuses were like chickens and dogs in front of Yi Chen. They didn't even have the qualifications to struggle. Meanwhile, Yi Chen had a carefree and relaxed expression from beginning to end. The calmer he was, the more Xing Melian felt that Yi Chen was frightening. Deputy Yi Chen's strength is no longer something I can guess. Could he have reached half-step king realm? Judging from his strength on the surface, he shouldn't have. But who knows what else he's hiding? Xing Melian didn't know how powerful half-step kings were, just like how she didn't know how powerful Yi Chen was. However, in her eyes, Yi Chen was much more powerful than Sea of Soul Masters. Even if he wasn't as powerful as half-step kings, he wouldn't be too far off. With Yi Chen's strength being this powerful, Xing Melian finally relaxed. As long as the number of enemies wasn't too excessive, there wouldn't be any danger. However, the two didn't encounter a second wave of enemies. In the evening, the two returned. The days in Azure Dragon Hall were very ordinary. However, this kind of peacefulness was usually only temporary. Once a battle broke out, it would be a life and death situation. Therefore, no one rejected this kind of peacefulness. They would rather live a peaceful life for a long time, giving them enough time to increase their strength. On this day, an attendant arrived at Yi Chen's residence. It was Azure Dragon Hall leader Wei Longtao who had ordered him to come. He wanted him to go to the Azure Dragon Hall to discuss some important matters. Arriving at the Azure Dragon Hall, Yi Chen discovered that the other two deputy leaders had also arrived. Deputy Yi Chen, Wu Chuan and Su Danian greeted Yi Chen one after another. Yi Chen returned their greetings one by one. On the main seat, Wei Longtao saw Yi Chen's arrival and said, "All right, everyone. This time, I've called you here because I have a mission for you. However, this mission is rather big, and you won't be able to accomplish it alone. It will require the cooperation of 2 people. Therefore, you should discuss among yourselves who should go." Su Danian asked, "Leader, what is the mission this time?" 5 Gold Island, Number 2 Volcano Island, and Mysterious Spirit Island's resources are almost here. I need you to transport them back. Wei Longtao's voice was very calm, but it caused Wu Chuan and Su Danian to frown. These 3 islands were all rich in resources, producing a lot of resources. The 5 Gold Island mainly produced 5 kinds of rare metal ores. The number 2 Volcano Island produced a large amount of middle-grade flamecloud rock. And the Mysterious Spirit Island had 3 middle-grade spirit veins, 2 high-grade middle-grade spirit veins, and 1 peak-grade middle-grade spirit veins. It was easy to imagine how difficult the mission this time would be. After all, the more resources they transported, the more danger they would encounter. In these years, out of 10 times they had transported resources, at least 5 of them had encountered danger, and 3 of them had been surrounded and killed. How can I, Wu Chuan? Dragonkin Vice Hall Master Wu Chuan stood up and expressed his attitude. Su Danian let out a breath and said in a deep voice, "Deputy Leader Hu Wenhai's death has already made me feel suffocated. It's best if I don't run into the 4 great factions. If I do, I'll teach them a lesson and kill them all. Therefore, I must go this time." The 2 of them indicated that they wanted to go, leaving only Yi Chen alone. Vice Palace Master Yi, this is your first time coming to the Azure Dragon Palace. You are not familiar with the situation here. I think you should not go this time. Give the opportunity to us, Wu Chuan said. Yi Chen said indifferently, "I am here to help the Azure Dragon Palace salvage the situation. As for the Blood Battle Seas environment, I am more or less familiar with it. Vice Palace Master Wu, Vice Palace Master Su, you 2 should discuss who should go. After all, there are 2 slots this time." Ugh. The 2 of them hadn't expected Yi Chen to reject them so bluntly. However, what he said was also reasonable. They hadn't come here to sightsee, or to satisfy the craving of a Vice Temple Master. They had come here to do something. But to be honest, the two of them didn't think that Yi Chen would be of much use. They weren't underestimating Yi Chen's strength. In fact, the two of them didn't dare to underestimate Yi Chen at all. Unfortunately, the situation in the Blood Battle Sea was like this. Forget it, Deputy Palace Master Su, you go. Anyway, we still have a long way to go. Wu Chuan left on his own. Then many thanks. Su Danian cupped his fists. Seeing that the three had finished their discussion, Wei Longtao took out 2 palm-sized black bags from his storage ring. They were bulging and filled with things. With a flick of his wrist, the 2 bags landed in Yi Chen and Su Danian's hands respectively. Old rules. Each person gets 10 mid-grade storage rings and 50 low-grade storage rings. Put all the resources inside. Each ring must be filled to the brim. Su Danian explained to Yi Chen. Deputy Yi, this is a resource storage ring. Once it's filled, the gems on it will light up. Moreover, there's a restriction on it. You can only put it in, but not take it out. Yi Chen nodded. He knew that this was to prevent the treasures from disappearing. As for the amount of resources, they would definitely check the accounts after they returned. There wouldn't be any loopholes. Tomorrow morning, you guys set off. Remember, don't reveal the mission to anyone else. Otherwise, you will be punished according to the palace rules. Yes. The three turned around and left the Azure Dragon Palace. Late at night, the night was as cold as water. Inside a luxurious and spacious bedroom, a person with his back facing the light took out a snail-shaped metal artifact. He poured his Zhen Yuan inside, and the artifact faintly glowed. What's wrong? Another mission? A voice unexpectedly came from the artifact. Indeed, the voice was unfamiliar, as if it had been altered. Very well, say it. This time, I want 10 king-grade spirit energy stones. What? Are you crazy? You think a few hundred people, and a batch of resources, are worth 10 king-grade spirit energy stones? The owner of the artifact said indifferently. Dragon God Celestial Palace's head disciple, 5th disciple, 8th disciple, Dragon King's most favored genius Yi Chen, along with 700 people's lives and a huge amount of resources. Do you think it's worth 10 king-grade spirit energy stones? The man was silent for a long time before he said, You should know that Challenger-level spiritual crystals can only be found in the remains of Challenger-level spiritual crystals. In this world, the number of Challenger-level spiritual crystals is not endless. How about 5 Challenger-level spiritual crystals and 50 top-class spiritual crystals? Our ideal. The owner of the artifact revealed a faint smile as he told the details of the mission. On the second morning, the training ground was filled with people. Yi Chen and Su Danian arrived one after another. Seeing that Lin Songhai was also in the crowd, Yi Chen faintly nodded. If the latter did not come this time, he would let him know how high the sky was. Without saying anything, Yi Chen and Su Danian said directly, Let's go. Shoo, shoo. The two of them flew out first, turning into a beam of light that shot out. Then more than 700 people followed closely behind them, densely packed together. Soon, the crowd disappeared into the horizon. On the boundless ocean, islands were scattered everywhere. The big ones would take a long time to fly past, and the small ones would be left behind in a blink of an eye. In front of the crowd of light, Su Danian and Yi Chen flew side by side. Leader Yi, the 5 Gold Island and the mysterious Spirit Island are the closest, only tens of thousands of miles away. The number 2 Volcano Island is hundreds of thousands of miles away. You and I will go to the 5 Gold Island and the mysterious Spirit Island first. Then we will meet up and go to the number 2 Volcano Island. What do you think? Su Danian suggested. All right. Yi Chen agreed. Then I will go to the 5 Gold Island, and you go to the mysterious Spirit Island. You should know the location, right? Half a month ago, I had already found it out. That time, Xing Malian had taken him to a lot of resource islands. Therefore, he knew the locations of the 5 Gold Island, the mysterious Spirit Island, and the number 2 Volcano Island. He also knew about the surrounding ocean environment, as well as where the resources of the 4 enemy parties were located. We are almost there. Have a safe journey. The Azure Dragon Palace was right next to the Blood Battle Ocean. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was in the Blood Battle Ocean. Therefore, the 5 Gold Island and the mysterious Spirit Island were only 600,000 to 700,000 miles away from the Azure Dragon Palace. In 2 days, the crowd had almost reached their destination. If it were not for the large amount of astral-reaching realm warriors in the team, the time would be a couple of times shorter. After half an hour, the 700 people had been divided into 2 groups. One group was Su Danian's team, and the other was Yi Chen's team. The 2 groups flew in different directions, one on the left and the other on the right. There are still 2 hours to go. Everyone hurry up. Yi Chen turned his head and said, "Hurry up." Xing Malian was the one who trusted Yi Chen the most, so she was also yelling right then. Hearing her, everyone did not care about using up their Zhen Yuan anymore. They swallowed a dan to replenish Zhen Yuan and started to increase their speed. Soon, they arrived at the mysterious Spirit Island. There were thousands of mining workers on the island, and the Azure Dragon Palace also had a group of people stationed there. The Dragon God Celestial Palace had an agreement with the 4 opposing forces. The resources and workers on the island were not allowed to be robbed or harmed. Therefore, they would only be attacked when they were transporting resources, since everyone had their own resources and mining workers. On the Blood Battle Ocean, it would be both sides who would suffer. If they did not control themselves, both sides would be injured, and there would be no benefits at all. The Dragon God Celestial Palace originally had 1,200 spirit veins on the Blood Battle Ocean. The reason why 200 of them had been robbed was because they were surrounded by the 4 opposing forces, and the environment was not good. Therefore, the 4 opposing forces had directly taken over the island, but did not harm the people on the island. Instead, they had sent them directly to the island, which belonged to the Dragon God Celestial Palace. The Dragon God Celestial Palace had also agreed to this. Since the environment was not good, it would be extremely dangerous to transport the resources. Otherwise, if they really wanted to fight, the Dragon God Celestial Palace would most likely be at a disadvantage. There were 3 spirit veins on the mysterious Spirit Island, and there were a lot of resources there. All of them were piled up in a cave. Once people walked in, they could immediately feel the moist nature of the spirit chi. It was because the spirit chi was too dense and sticky. For people with insufficient cultivation, it would not be a good thing to train here, since they would be blown up by the spirit chi and break all of their meridians. Deputy Yi, the spirit stones are all here. The person in charge of the Dragon God Celestial Palace said with respect. All right. Yi Chen nodded as he took out a mid-rank resource storage ring. With a wave of his hand, piles of spirit stones were put into the ring. Chapter 680. 3 mid-rank spirit veins, which was a couple of months' worth of mining, was a shocking number. Yi Chen spent a whole 15 minutes before he managed to put all of the spirit stones into his storage rings. So far, 2 mid-rank storage rings and 10 low-rank storage rings had been filled. Not all of the spirit stones from the mid-rank spirit veins were mid-rank spirit stones. In fact, the low-rank spirit stones were more than the mid-rank ones, taking up half of the total, while the mid-rank spirit stones took up 90% of the remaining half. The top-rank spirit stones were the least, but it was still quite impressive. This was the harvest from 2 top-ranked mid-rank spirit veins, and 1 top-ranked mid-rank spirit vein. And these 3 spirit veins made up quite a lot of the 1,000 spirit veins. After all, out of the 1,000 spirit veins that the Dragon God Celestial Palace had in the Blood Battle Ocean, 900 of them were all low-rank spirit veins. Dozens of low-rank spirit veins might not even be able to compete with 1 top-rank or top-ranked mid-rank spirit vein. After collecting the spirit stones, Yi Chen did not waste any time and left the mysterious Spirit Island immediately, bringing his people and flying towards the 5 Gold Island. On the way, Yi Chen's eyebrows flicked as he slowed down his speed. Second Leader Yi, what's wrong? The middle-aged scholar Yin Quan asked. Yi Chen raised his arm and pointed to the right. Let's go this way. This way. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. Yao Yifeng's expression changed as he yelled. Second Leader Yi. What we need to do right now is to meet up with Second Leader Su as soon as possible. What are you doing? Yi Chen looked at Yao Yifeng with a sharp gaze. Am I the second leader, or are you the second leader? All you need to do is follow the orders. Yao Yifeng said with a bit of courage. Right now, the Azure Dragon Palace is in danger. We cannot let you act on your own and put us in unnecessary danger. Please reconsider. Second Leader Yi, Attendant Yao is right. We should meet up with Second Leader Su right now. The longer we are separated, the more dangerous it will be. Deputy Palace Leader Yi, you have to give us a reason. There were too many people who didn't know what was going on. Some of them stood out to support Yao Yifeng. After all, compared to fighting against the Deputy Palace Master, their lives were more important. If they lost their lives, fighting against the Deputy Palace Master wouldn't make any difference. Besides, to be honest, they didn't really trust Yi Chen. Not everyone had leadership abilities. Yi Chen narrowed his eyes and stared at Yao Yifeng for a long time. After a while he said, if we walk in a straight line we will be ambushed. If we walk on the right front we can catch them off guard. Is this reason enough? There will be an ambush. Everyone was shocked. Hearing him, a trace of panic flashed through Yao Yifeng's eyes as he forced a smile and said, Second Leader Yi, how do you know there will be an ambush? We are all at the Sea of Soul's realm, and our soul power is the same. But I didn't sense anything. Perhaps you are overthinking. Right then, even Xing Malian was looking at Yi Chen strangely, because she also didn't sense anything strange. She had even checked whether there were any black octopuses under the sea. Moreover, if Yi Chen sensed an enemy, the enemy would definitely know as well. After all, everyone was at the Sea of Soul's realm, and they were very sensitive to soul power scanning. Yi Chen said lightly, you don't need to know this. Besides, this is the first time I am explaining to everyone, and also the last time. Next time, whoever dares to disobey will be punished according to the palace rules. Right now everyone follow me. If you don't, you will be treated as a traitor. Changing his route, Yi Chen flew toward the right front. Xing Malian, Chen Yusen, and the rest hesitated a bit before following him. Soon, most of the people followed, leaving only Yao Yifeng and a small group. Let's go, Yao Yifeng said in a low voice. Although he dared to voice out his opinion, he didn't dare to go against Yi Chen directly. He was sure that if he did, Yi Chen would definitely take him down. Although everyone was following behind Yi Chen, they were still communicating with each other. What the hell is Deputy Yi doing? Instead of gathering with Deputy Su, he said that there is an ambush ahead. I don't believe he can sense it. He is the deputy. We should just follow his orders. Perhaps he has his own concerns. Xing Malian spoke up for Yi Chen. Yeah, I also believe that senior brother Yi wouldn't do this for no reason. Chen Yusen chose to stand on Yi Chen's side. On the two sides of the original route, groups of people were lying in ambush. There were 6 of them in total. The entrance of the ambush was very wide, at least 1,000 miles wide. The closer it was to the center, the closer the distance between the two sides was. The whole ambush was like an X shape. Reaching the center of the X, one soul power would be able to sense the people on both sides. Unfortunately, it would already be in the middle of the ambush. Once the enemies saw Yi Chen and the rest, they would send out a signal, and then they would definitely be surrounded. If Yi Chen chose the right front, he would be able to kill them. Although there were a lot of enemies, they were separated into 6 groups, which meant that their manpower was spread out by 6 times. As for how Yi Chen knew about it, it shouldn't be forgotten that Yi Chen's soul power was 5 times that of normal people. He could skin everything within 500 miles, and the quality was even higher than Sea of Soul's realm warriors. His soul power was equivalent to a king warrior's soul power. He could sense others, but others would not be able to sense his soul power scanning. This was the advantage and usefulness of Yi Chen. On the island closest to Yi Chen and the rest, 200 people were hiding in a mountain. Their clothes had a swirl pattern on them. They were the warriors of the Water Wave School. This time, our school has sent out 600 warriors, and the Sky Eagle cult has sent out 700 warriors. Altogether, it would be 1,300 warriors. Killing 300 of them would be too easy. The Black King Gate and Whirlwind Gate would definitely be able to kill the other 300 as well. Haha, killing 700 warriors at once. The Azure Dragon Hall has lost almost half of its power. Including the last time, the Azure Dragon Hall has already lost 1,000 warriors in a couple of months. They must be in a panic right now. They can only blame themselves for being careless and not being able to gain the upper hand every time. Yeah, I have to say that the average battling power of the Azure Dragon Hall is a lot higher than ours. If we were to fight with the same number of people, we would be at a disadvantage. Haha, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's drink and kill the enemies later. Cheers. Inside the mountain, the aroma of wine filled the air. 100 miles away from the island, Yi Chen stopped. Turning his head, Yi Chen said with a cold voice, "Wait for my order. Once I give the order, everyone will increase their speed. Sea of Souls Realm warriors, start attacking the biggest mountain on the island from 30 miles away. Attack while moving forward at full speed. Astral-reaching realm warriors, just follow behind us and wait for my order." 100 miles distance would be covered in 7 to 8 breaths for normal Sea of Souls realm warriors, and 20 to 30 breaths for astral-reaching realm warriors. As for Yi Chen, it would only take him 2 to 3 breaths. If he used his defensive sword spell, it would be even faster. However, the effect would not be that great by himself, so he would need the other Sea of Souls realm warriors to attack together. As for astral-reaching realm warriors, it would be useless, since their speed would be too slow. Taking a deep breath, Yi Chen yelled, "Full speed!" Shoo! Yi Chen flew out first. "Let's go!" Including Lin Songhai, Chen Yusen, and Luo Yunsong. 43 Sea of Souls realm warriors followed closely behind. The 300 astral-reaching realm warriors were a lot slower, and had been left far behind. 100 miles, 80 miles, 60 miles, 50 miles. Inside the mountain on the island, a Sea of Souls realm warrior subconsciously released his soul power, and then took it back immediately. Ichem. He frowned and released his soul power again. All of a sudden, his expression changed. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Get out of the mountain now. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, a huge black thunder ball exploded on the mountain peak. Then sword chi, saber chi, palm energy, fist energy, true essence, crescent moonlight, claw shadows, all of them bombarded the mountain peak. For a moment, time seemed to stand still above the island, and the air was as thick as water. Rumble! The black thunder ball released by Yi Chen was the first to show its effect. The aggressive black lightning shot everywhere like countless black flood dragons playing in the sky. The sky changed color. The sword chi and blade chi cut everything in front of them open, while the palm power and fist power shattered the whole place. Ah! Screams were heard one after another. No one knew how many people had died in this sudden attack. Even the powerful Sea of Souls realm warriors were not spared. This, Xing Malian, and the rest were stupefied. They had followed Yi Chen's orders to not release their soul power. Whoever dared to release their soul power would be killed without mercy. Therefore, only when the mountain was shattered and the people inside turned into ashes did they realize that there were enemies here. How did he know? This was what everyone wanted to know. Don't let a single one go. Yi Chen's expression was cold. He knew that if he let one go, he wouldn't be able to continue killing the enemy forces. The 4 forces had killed so many people of Dragon God Celestial Palace. This time, it was time for them to suffer a heavy blow. Moreover, it would be an extremely painful one. Attack! Xing Malian admired Yi Chen from the bottom of her heart. She had already made up her mind. In the future, whatever Yi Chen said, she would do. Among everyone, Lin Songhai was the most hardworking. He had previously said that he would compete with Yi Chen in terms of number of kills. And now, it had already begun. As a master-level sword artist, who was no weaker than the second master of the Elder Union, Lin Songhai alone was more than enough to fight against a lot of people. That dense sword chi covered over, and a huge area in the center of the island was under the attack of his sword chi. Unfortunately, Yi Chen's one thunder ball had killed too many people. No matter how one looked at it, he was still a little bit lacking. The whole island was thrown into chaos. There were less than 10 people left, all of whom were head attendants and battle attendants. As for the other Sea of Soul realm experts and astral reaching experts, they were all dead. Not a single one left alive. Run! These 7 or 8 enemies scattered, running for their lives. Swish! A black sword chi slashed out, devouring 2 enemies not far away. This was an attack launched by Yi Chen. Although the others were running, there were too many attacks. Being caught in the fierce firepower net, how could they escape? One after another, they were shattered into pieces. At this point, the first surprise attack was a complete success. Yi Chen and 40 people had killed more than 200 enemies, and the astral-reaching experts had yet to catch up. They could only be useful in a frontal battle. Chapter 681. Right then, no one dared to doubt Yi Chen anymore. If it were not for Yi Chen, they would not be able to kill these 200 enemies in such a short period of time. Plus, if they followed the original route, they would most likely fall into the ambush circle and suffer a devastating attack. I am starting to believe that he can turn the situation around for the Azure Dragon Palace. Xing Melian took a deep breath and mumbled to herself. Head disciple is probably going to lose this time. Chen Yusin looked at Lin Songhai, then at Yi Chen. Just then, Yi Chen had killed dozens of people with his first sword attack, and Lin Songhai was obviously weaker than Yi Chen. Plus, Yi Chen did not seem to be serious at all. After throwing out the first sword attack, the rest of the attacks were all on the outside, preventing the enemies from escaping. In the crowd, a cold light flashed through Yao Yifeng's eyes, but he hid it well. Unfortunately, he could not hide it from Yi Chen. When Yi Chen forcefully chose to move forward, he knew that there would be a conflict. He was happy to see this kind of situation, since only this kind of situation could bring out the current results. The bigger the contrast, the more effective it would be. In other words, if things went according to the normal way, Yi Chen's reputation would not be as high as it was right now. But now, everyone was starting to trust him blindly. Next, Yi Chen brought 300 people and flew toward the top right corner of the X-shaped ambush circle. As for the middle corner, it was too close to the enemies on the other side of the original route, and it would be easy to alert them. Therefore, the 4 corners of the X-shaped ambush circle were the best targets for a surprise attack. This time, the enemies were still the Water Wave Martial School's people. There were less than 200 of them, about 180 people. Among them, there were 20 Sea of Souls Realm Warriors and 160 Astral Reaching Realm Warriors. If they fought head-on, although Yi Chen's 300 people could kill them all, there would still be some casualties. They were completely caught off guard. Since they were at the back of the ambush circle, this batch of enemies was even worse than the first batch. They did not even know that Yi Chen and the rest had gotten within 30 miles of them. In the first round of attacks, more than half of them were wiped out. After the second round of attacks, only a dozen or so of varying sizes were left. In the third round of attacks, all of them were wiped out. This is great. I've never felt so good before. Deputy Leader Yi is simply a god. Only he could allow us to annihilate our enemies without suffering any injuries. Now, if anyone dares to speak ill of Deputy Leader Yi, I, Lu Biao, will be the first to fall out with him. An Azure Dragon Hall combat deacon's face flushed red. That was a sign of excitement. In the past 1 or 2 years, the Azure Dragon Hall had lost many people to the 4 enemy forces. One of them was Lu Biao's sworn brother. He swore that he would kill 10 enemies to avenge his sworn brother, and now he was about to do it. With Vice Palace Master Yi here, our Azure Dragon Hall can finally hold our heads high. So what if the 4 enemy factions have the advantage in numbers? Kill them all. Yao Yifeng, you seem unhappy. Could it be that you have a grudge with Vice Palace Master Yi? Someone noticed that Yao Yifeng did not have any expression on his face, which was very abnormal. Now apart from Yi Chen, everyone was very happy. Yao Yifeng forced a smile. How could that be? I also admire Vice Palace Master Yi a lot. I was a little rash before, actually suspecting him. So you're worried about this matter. I believe that Vice Palace Master Yi will not hold a grudge. Someone patted Yao Yifeng's shoulder and smiled. That's for the best. The corner of Yao Yifeng's mouth twitched. Without looking at Yao Yifeng, Yi Chen gave the order. Left advance. That was the other side of the original route. Just like that, Yi Chen's 300 men annihilated 4 groups of people. The first two groups were from Water School, while the last two were from the Sky Eagle cult. It took a lot of effort to annihilate the Sky Eagle cult. The Sky Eagle cult was the same as the Imperial Beast School, famous for raising demonic beasts. However, the demonic beasts they raised were all eagle-type demonic beasts. Yi Chen's group rushed forward and killed many eagle-type demonic beasts. Finally, they killed their nest and annihilated them in one fell swoop. Fortunately, things went smoothly. Out of the 6 groups of people, 4 had died, leaving only the last 2 groups. The last 2 groups of people were not easy to deal with, because they were in the middle of the X-shaped ambush circle, and were relatively close to each other. Killing people on one side would attract the attention of the other side. The only way was to end the battle quickly, and cut through the Gordian knot. Something is not right. Under the deserted island, the skinny man frowned and thought carefully. What's not right? Someone beside him asked. I can't think of anything wrong, but I have a bad feeling. Do you think we will fail this time? Don't joke around. How could we fail? Even if we fail, we have more than 1,300 people with the Water School's people added up. What's there to be afraid of? That's true. Maybe I am worrying too much. The skinny man smiled and relaxed a lot. However, the bad feeling in his heart had not dissipated yet, which made him a little confused. Boom! The ocean water hit the rocks on the edge of the island, creating a series of explosive sounds. In the sky, the clouds were connected together, extending all the way to the horizon. Amidst the noise of the waves hitting the shore, human figures suddenly appeared at the end of the horizon. More and more of them appeared, and it looked like a stain on a painting of blue sky and white clouds. The number of enemies here is close to 300, and there is another group of enemies 80 li away from here. Everyone, you must use all of your killing moves. Otherwise, when the other group of enemies arrives, some of you will die. Yi Chen said with a low voice. Don't worry, Deputy Leader Yi. We will do our best. Brothers, if you don't want to die, then use all of your strength. Everyone was full of confidence. If Yi Chen told them to go east, then they would definitely not go west. Whoever dared to go west would be going against everyone. Alright, let's go. Yi Chen took out his Thunder Disaster Sword and pointed it forward. Shoo! 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 An air-piercing sound could be heard continuously. With Yi Chen as the arrowhead, the 300 people rushed toward the island with all of their strength. Underneath the island, the bad feeling in the skinny man's heart was getting stronger and stronger. He kept walking back and forth, releasing his soul power from time to time, hoping to sense something. Unfortunately, there was nothing. Could it be that I am thinking too much? The skinny man started to doubt himself. Every time he encountered danger, he would be alerted. But in the past, it would come true very quickly. But this time, it had been quite a while, and there was not even a single clue. Having a clue was not scary, but having no clue would be scary. It was like the calm before the storm. Once again he released his soul power. Fuck. Enemy attack. Enemy attack. The skinny man's face turned pale. His premonition had finally come true, but he would rather not. More than 50 miles away, more than 40 silhouettes were flying over at an astonishing speed. The person in the front had already raised his lightning-like sword, ready to attack. Deputy Zhao, you are not joking, right? The person who had told the skinny man to be at ease earlier said subconsciously. Joke your mother. The skinny man jumped out of the ground. Crack. The second he jumped out of the ground, a black thunder ball approached from afar, landing in the middle of the island at a seemingly slow speed. All of a sudden, the center of the island caved in. Then, the thunder ball exploded, and countless black lightning bolts spread out like black demonic dragons. Even with the skinny man's warning, no one could react in time. It was not their fault, since Yi Chen's attack had arrived almost within a second. Even if they could react in time, what could they do? No matter how fast their body arts were, how could they be faster than an attack? This thunderball had directly killed 5 to 6 Sea of Souls realm warriors, and 60 astral reaching realm warriors. Besides that, this thunderball had also made the rest of the people panic. There was no way for them to work together, so they could only run for their lives to avoid the center of the explosion. Sword chi, blade chi, palm power, fist power, Zhen Yuan flow. After the thunder ball, more than 40 attacks landed on the center of the island one after another. The whole island started to shake violently before being torn apart. A huge amount of seawater poured out through the cracks, giving people a strong illusion that it was the end of the world, and there was nowhere to run. Not good. They are being attacked. While the people of the Sky Eagle cult were being attacked, the last batch of water wave sects people sensed the situation over there. The leader of this group said suspiciously, "Why are they being attacked?" He thought that Yi Chun and the rest had already entered the ambush. However, the result was unexpected. "Don't worry about it. Go and help them." Shoo, shoo, shoo. A huge amount of experts flew into the sky, flying toward the 80 Li area. Take care of them as soon as possible. Yi Chun sensed the arrival of the last batch of water wave sex people. Kill! Kill! The experts of the Azure Dragon Hall had blood-red eyes. They had an aura of killing anyone who stood in their way. They had never felt so carefree before. The people of the Sky Eagle cult were getting fewer and fewer. From 200 to 100, it was a miserable scene. You have already entered the ambush. Just wait for your death. The remaining people of the Sky Eagle cult said fiercely. Hearing them, people on Yi Chen's side almost laughed out loud. They thought to themselves, "You are already the last batch, and you still think that we have entered the ambush?" However, thinking back, they couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Without Yi Chun, they would indeed have entered the ambush, and the ending would have been completely different. Unknowingly, they trusted Yi Chun even more, almost to the point of blindness. Bastards of the Azure Dragon Hall, your good luck ends here. More than 300 people from Water Wave sect rushed over, gathering with the remaining dozens of people from the Sky Eagle cult. Their total number was close to 400, which was a lot more than the 300 people of Yi Chun. Who will end here is still not certain, Xing Malian said loudly. Haha, little bitch. I will let you have a good time after I catch you. The leader of Water Wave sect laughed. TSK. Still thinking about sex even at death's door. Xing Malian's face was full of disdain as she stared at them, as if they were dead people. Get in. Yi Chun did not say anything, and directly took out the golden dragon chariot. The huge chariot floated in the sky, overflowing with golden light. Shoo! Shoo! The dozens of people who were called before jumped onto the chariot, which was controlled by a normal Sea of Souls realm warrior. The chariot roared as it rushed toward the enemy's camp. Those who did not get on the chariot followed closely behind, using it as the tip of a spear. Chariot. The leader of the Water Wave sect frowned. Chariot weapons were very precious, and he was only a deputy leader of a sect, so he did not have the right to own one. So what if you have a chariot? Our people will only increase. The leader of the Water Wave sect was not afraid at all. Rumble. As the distance between the two sides got closer, a head-on battle could happen at any moment. This time, it was different from the surprise attack. It would be relying on real power, where the strong would survive, and the weak would be eliminated. However, with Yi Chun here, the outcome of the enemies had already been decided. Up until now, Yi Chun had not even used half of his power, and he still had a super ace like the defensive sword spell. Chapter 682. Kill. 30 miles was the best attacking distance. If it was a bit further, the attacking power would be greatly reduced, and if it was a bit closer, the opponent would have the upper hand. Standing at the front of the battle chariot, Yi Chun lifted up his Thunder Disaster sword and threw out a sword attack. Swoosh! The sky seemed to have been torn apart as the black thunder ball shot out in a straight line. The others' attacks followed right after. All of a sudden, the whole sky was filled with strange phenomena. 40 Sea of Souls realm warriors and 300 astral reaching realm warriors had combined their attacks, which were extremely horrifying. Even half-step king warriors would have to back out, not daring to take it head-on. Anyone below the half-step king warrior level would die upon touching it. Kill them all. The leader of the Water Wave Martial School waved his hand and yelled. In fact, even without the order, when Yi Chun and the rest were 30 miles away from them, they had already finished preparing their power and threw out their most powerful attacks. Fighting head-on would be extremely brutal, as individual power would be greatly reduced. Only by working together would they be able to fight back. Boom, 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 boom. On one side, there were 300 attacks, while on the other side, there were almost 400 attacks. They clashed together at an extremely fast speed, causing a heart-shattering explosion sound to be heard continuously. The chaotic blast waves spread out in circles, turning the center into a death zone. Pap, pap. Not all of the attacks from the two sides collided with each other, and there were always some that slipped through the net. About 30 attacks passed through the chaotic chi flow and bombarded on the protective cover of the golden dragon chariot, stirring up waves of ripples and shaking the entire chariot. However, in the end, the defensive layer of the battle chariot was not broken. The defense of the battle chariot was even more powerful than a single semi-extreme rank armor. Although there were a lot of attacks, they were all exhausted, so naturally, they could not break through. On the other side, there were 40 attacks from the Water Wave Martial School that went through the chaotic chi flow, killing dozens of them within a second. It turned out that Yi Chen's Thunder Ball had destroyed a huge amount of attacks, and Lin Songhai was not to be underestimated either. The two of them were equal to a lot of people. Therefore, although the Azure Dragon Palace had fewer people, the effect was more than the remaining people from the Water Wave School and Sky Eagle cult. Keep killing. Yi Chen no longer used Thunder Devour. Instead, he used ordinary sword chi to attack. This way, although his individual attack power was not as high as Thunder Devour, with his sword speed, he could instantly unleash dozens or even hundreds of swords. The others followed suit, giving up on their ultimate techniques and choosing to attack with the fastest speed. In the blink of an eye, more than 300 people had unleashed thousands of attacks. The scene was extremely explosive. Stop them. The first round of attacks had already killed more than 10 people. The leader of Water School's expression changed a little. The battle prowess of Yi Chen and Lin Songhai was beyond his imagination. These two were definitely at the peak of master level. Perhaps only the leader himself could contend with one of them. In the second round of attacks, dozens of Water Wave sect members died, and the remaining members of the Sky Eagle cult also died. Right then, the Gold Dragon Chariot was already less than 10 miles away from the enemy camp. The attacks that were thrown out from 10 miles away were not weakened at all, and were still the most powerful attacks. As the distance got closer and closer, the casualties would get more and more exaggerated. In the second round of attacks, Yi Chen had already lost 3 or 4 warriors. But of course, they were all astral-reaching realm warriors, and their defense was way too low. Boom! Finally, the Gold Dragon Chariot's defense had been broken through. That aggressive chi flow landed on everyone's body, continuously weakening their protective Zhen Yuan. Pooh! A middle-aged man on the left side of the chariot puked out a mouthful of blood. He was the one controlling the Gold Dragon Chariot. Once the defense layer had been broken, he had already suffered a bit of backlash. Therefore, he could not block out the remaining chi flow, and his protective Zhen Yuan layer had been shattered. Change to someone else to control the chariot. You sit and rest. Yi Chen made the decision immediately. Yes. A chubby man pushed his Zhen Yuan and poured it into the Gold Dragon Chariot. All of a sudden, a light gold transparent defense layer appeared around the chariot. In this round of attacks, the casualties on Yi Chen's side had reached double digits, reaching 14 people. 13 of them had died, and 1 had been badly wounded. The good thing was that the Water Wave sect had more casualties, which had suddenly increased to more than 30 people. Adding the Sky Eagle cult's casualties, it was more than 50. After a few rounds of attacks, Yi Chen's side had only lost less than 20 people, while the other side had lost nearly 100 people. The difference was huge. Seeing that the Gold Dragon Chariot was about to reach them, the Water Wave sect's leader gritted his teeth and said, "Full defense. Wait for reinforcements." He would never have thought that in this battle, without any reinforcements, the other 4 batches of people had all been annihilated by Yi Chen's group, leaving not a single one alive. Pop, pop, pop. Switching from offense to defense, not a single Water Wave sect member had died. The thick Zhenyuan barrier had firmly blocked the attacks from Yi Chen's group. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable defense in this world. It would be fine for a short period of time, but after a long time, the Zhenyuan barrier would be shaken and would not be able to hold on. You guys have no hope. The other 4 batches have all become ghosts. Yi Chen said in shock. Bullshit. You guys can kill 4 batches of people? Do you know how many of them there are? Just a spit from one of them is enough to drown you all. The water wave sect side did not believe a single one of them. Yi Chen sneered. For groups of people, the largest group has 250 people, and the smallest group has 180 people. Am I right? Also, how do you think we managed to get here? If we had walked into the ambush from the front, you guys would not be so miserable. I don't believe it. The leader of the water wave sect was pale. He was starting to believe it, but even if he did, he could not say it out loud. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Yi Chen did not need to make everyone believe him. As long as he left a seed in their hearts, they would gradually feel despair. Boom, boom, boom. The Golden Dragon battle chariot stopped 5 miles away, continuously attacking the Zhenyuan barrier. The Zhenyuan barrier, which was previously as stable as a mountain, was now starting to shake. Time passed mercilessly, and the frequency of the Zhenyuan shaking increased. Meanwhile, the astral-reaching realm warriors who had poured Zhenyuan into the Zhenyuan barrier started to bleed from time to time. They were badly wounded, since the Zhenyuan barrier was closely related to them. The constant shaking of the Zhenyuan barrier would cause them to suffer some backlash. Once or twice would not be a big deal, but after hundreds of times, the astral-reaching realm warriors would definitely not be able to handle it. Gradually, more and more astral-reaching realm warriors were getting wounded, and the Zhenyuan barrier was getting weaker and weaker. The Zhenyuan barrier was getting weaker and weaker, and more people were getting wounded. It was a vicious cycle that had no solution. The leader of the water wave sect saw that he could not hold on anymore, so he said with a stern face, "If you kill us, you won't have a good ending either. My water wave sect will pay you back 10 times. That is for the future. Let's think about the present." Yi Chen increased his attacking power. Everyone hold on. The reinforcements will come for sure. The leader of the water wave sect was desperate. He could only hope for a miracle. Crack. After 15 minutes, the Zhenyuan barrier had been weakened to a certain extent, and cracks started to appear. Although the cracks were being repaired, the speed of repair was not as fast as the damage. Pung! The entire Zhenyuan barrier had been shattered. Hundreds of astral-reaching realm warriors puked out blood as they were blown away, heavily wounded and on the verge of death. Most of the remaining astral-reaching realm warriors were wounded as well, and their battling power had been greatly reduced. As for the Sea of Souls realm warriors, although they had resisted the recoil, their blood and chi had been shaken, and their bodies had become sluggish. Kill! Yi Chen yelled. More than 300 attacks were mercilessly thrown toward the enemy camp. If it were before, the enemy camp might have been able to block them, but now there was less than 10% of them who could fight back. They were all either heavily wounded or paralyzed, unable to react in time. Blood-curdling screams were heard one after another, and half of the enemy camp had been cleared out. Some people started to run away. Unfortunately, those who tried to run would be taken care of by Yi Chen. Any random green lotus sword chi that contained the destruction sword intent would be able to kill a line of people, not to mention astral-reaching realm warriors. Even Sea of Souls realm warriors would not be able to block it. Yi Chen, who had the rank 5 destruction sword intent, had an astonishing attacking power. Rumble! Thousands of miles away from the 5 Gold Island, the group led by Deputy Palace Leader Su was forced to stop. In front of them, the seawater suddenly surged, and a water curtain that connected the sky and the earth rose out of nowhere, blocking their way. Under the seawater, dozens of huge black octopuses could be seen swimming. On the left side, there were 300 warriors, and on the right side, there were also 200 warriors. The two groups added together were about twice their number. Retreat! Su Danian knew that they had been ambushed, So he led his warriors and tried to escape. Haha, you can't escape. Before they could escape for hundreds of miles, another two groups of warriors appeared, each with more than 200 warriors. They were from the Black King Gate and the Whirlwind Gate respectively. Your Azure Dragon Hall is quite daring. Half a month ago, you killed dozens of our Black King warriors. This time, you will pay it back 10 times. The leader of the Black King Gate had a cold expression. Deputy Su, let's fight with them. Su Danian led the warriors from the Azure Dragon Hall into despair. They all had the determination to die. Since they could not escape, they might as well fight with the enemies and kill one of them. Su Danian's face was dark. Don't fight recklessly for now. Save your Yuan Qi and wait for reinforcements. Don't even think about it. The other group also has 1,300 warriors protecting them. Without any surprises, they are all dead already. Of course, if they turn into ghosts, they might be able to help you. The leader of the Whirlwind Gate team said mockingly. How did you know about our operation? Su Danian still had hope in his heart. In the past half a month, he had not been idle. He had purposely investigated Yi Chen's background and found out that he was a very powerful warrior. He had never thought that there would be such a martial genius who could grow from a small martial genius to a great sword master, beating all the other martial geniuses in the continent. Therefore, he firmly believed that the others might die, but Yi Chen would definitely not die. Perhaps he would be able to break out of the encirclement with some of his warriors and regroup with them. In this way, although they would still be at a disadvantage, it was not completely hopeless. As long as they could bring back the resources, they would win. As for the rest, he had already given up hope. Right now, the most important thing was to stall for time and wait for Yi Chen's reinforcements. Chapter 683. The leader of the Whirlwind Gate knew that Su Danian was trying to stall for time, but he was not in a hurry at all. He did not believe that 1,300 people would not be able to handle 300 people. One round of attacks would be enough to take out half of them, and 2 rounds of attacks would definitely be enough to wipe them all out. This operation would be the biggest operation of the top 4 martial institutions. They had sent out 2,700 people in total, trying to take out all of the people from the Azure Dragon Palace. Therefore, this operation would be perfect, and there would be no accidents. You are about to die. What is the point of knowing the truth? The leader of the Whirlwind Gate walked over slowly with his people, giving off a kind of pressure. At least let me die in peace. Su Danian glanced around with the corner of his eyes. There were 4 groups of enemies in front of him, and there were almost 1,000 of them. Meanwhile, there were less than 400 of them, including 50 Sea of Souls Realm warriors and 305 Astral Reaching Realm warriors. 400 against 1,000. If they used all of their power to defend, they would probably be able to handle 20 to 30 rounds of attacks, since the attacks would be scattered. Even if they focused their attacks, they would not be able to combine perfectly. On the other hand, if they used all of their power to defend, the Zhenyuan wall would be able to combine perfectly, since everyone had the same Zhenyuan. Even if they had different elements, they would be able to coordinate with each other. You want to know, but I will not tell you. Letting the enemies die in frustration would make me feel happier. The leader of the Whirlwind Gate waved his hand, signaling the people behind him to stop. 10 miles was enough. If they were too close, they might be attacked by the enemies before they died. I have guessed that there must be someone inside the Azure Dragon Palace. Being ambushed once could still be considered a coincidence, but being ambushed twice, even an idiot would know that there was someone inside the palace. However, no matter how hard Su Danian tried, he could not guess who it was. The leader of the palace, Wei Longtao, was unlikely, since he was the leader of the Azure Dragon Palace, which was the leader of the palace and had a very high status. The possibility of him betraying the palace would be very low. The second leader, Wu Chuan, was also unlikely, since he had been friends with Wu Chuan for decades. He knew his personality very well. Excluding the 2 of them, the only ones who knew about this would be him and Yi Chen. Of course, it would be impossible for him. How could he lie to him? Yi Chen shouldn't be able to do it either. As a rare genius in 1,000 years, the possibility of betrayal was so small that it was negligible. Geniuses all had their own pride. They could be arrogant, they could be heartless, but they could not betray others. Betrayal was very despicable. Moreover, he could not think of anything that could make Yi Chen betray him. Yi Chen was currently in an explosive period of potential, and his future was boundless. What good would betrayal do him? After eliminating the other four, Su Danian knew that he had wasted his time. You can guess however you like. The leader of the Whirlwind Gate team did not comment. Just at this moment, black dots appeared in the distant sky. More and more black dots appeared, densely packed together. Vice Hall Master? The experts of the Azure Dragon Hall behind Su Danian were filled with hope. They did not want to die. Hence, when they saw the black dot, a trace of hope rose in their despair. Let's continue watching. Su Danian's voice trembled slightly. All of a sudden, 10 miles away from those black dots, another group of black dots appeared. The two groups of black dots were flying towards them from an angle. Su Danian's expression suddenly darkened. Yi Chen only had 300 people, but the number of those black dots had already exceeded 400. Therefore, they could not be Yi Chen's people. But then again, it made sense. Even if Yi Chen managed to lead his people to break out, he would definitely suffer a great loss. It would be a miracle if half of his people could survive, and it would be a miracle if 1/3 of his people could survive. The most likely scenario was that there would only be dozens of people left. Let's fight them. The last trace of hope had been shattered. The experts of the Azure Dragon Hall behind Su Danian looked extremely pale. They had been given hope, but it had been shattered at the same time. This was the cruelest thing. They had already given up on running away. Under the attack of more than 1,000 people, the possibility of running away was almost zero. Full defense. Su Danian had fallen into despair as well. If they could still hold on for 20 to 30 rounds of attacks before, then it would be great if they could hold on for 10 rounds now. The sudden increase of 400 people was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. They did not even have the confidence to fight with their lives on the line. Haha, you guys stop here. The leaders of the Black King Martial School and Whirlwind Gate looked like they were looking at a dead man. The reason why they did not care about Su Danian stalling for time was because of the fact that the situation had already been decided. Most importantly, they were waiting for the last two batches of people. After all, the number of enemies was not small either. 400 people versus 1,000 people would still be able to kill dozens of their people, which was not something they wanted to see. However, right now the situation had already been decided. Attack. Without any hesitation, the leaders of the Black King Martial School and Whirlwind Gate waved their hands. Countless attacks landed on the thick Jinyuan wall like raindrops. The cracking sound reached an extreme level within a second, and even the eardrums were about to explode. Thousands of miles away, Yi Chen led his people and rushed over. We have an ambush here. And Vice Leader Su must have an ambush as well. I wonder if they can hold on until we get there. Xing Malian was secretly worried. Next, there might be a bloody battle. Everyone, follow behind me, and do not stray from the team. Sister Chen, you guys better not be more than 10 steps away from me. This time, it will be very dangerous. Yi Chen did not think that Vice Leader Su would be able to kill a lot of enemies. It was very likely that he would not be able to kill even one. In other words, this time, they would have to face more than 1,000 people. If they fought them head-on, they would not be able to win at all. Only by driving the battle chariot would they be able to charge into the enemy group and prevent them from doing anything. Even so, it would still be very dangerous. It would be a bloody battle, and the key to victory was not on Yi Chen's side, but on Vice Leader Su's side. If Vice Leader Su had reserved a lot of people, then Yi Chen would have the confidence to beat the enemies. Yes, Brother Yi. Chen Yusin nodded obediently. Before this, she had never participated in a real battle before. Seeing the enemies falling one after another in front of her, she was shocked. Right then, she finally realized how weak an individual's power was in a battle. Life and death could be decided in just a second. I do not need your protection. Lin Songhai secretly tightened his fists. In the battle before, he had lost to Yi Chun without a doubt. But it was a battle between two sides, so it would be hard to know how many people he had killed. In the upcoming battle, he would use all of his power and everything he had learned. I think you do not need my protection either, Yi Chun said with a light tone. A few thousand miles was only a couple of breaths for Yi Chun, but for astral-reaching realm warriors, it was not a small distance. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the crowd finally saw Deputy Leader Su's men and the enemy's men. The scene was extremely brutal. The people led by Vice Leader Su had less than 300 people left, and with each breath, dozens of people would fall down. Meanwhile, the enemy's people had covered the sky. With a rough estimation, there were at least 1,300 people. The powerful attacks were like a meteor shower, attacking toward Vice Leader Su and the others. Everyone follow behind. Kill. Holding his Thunder Disaster sword up high, Yi Chun stood in front of the battle chariot, his black hair fluttering in the wind. Kill. The rest of the people started to yell as well. What? The warriors from the Black King Martial School and the Whirlwind Martial School turned their heads in shock, looking at Yi Chun and the 300 people behind him. How is this possible? How did they get here? The leader of the Black King Martial School could not accept this fact. They could not have broken through the ambush. They must have taken a detour for some reason. The leader of the Whirlwind Martial School said with certainty. Regardless, they have already made it here. So what? We have 1,300 people on our side. Even if we split out half of it, we would still have 600 people. It would be more than enough to crush them. The leader licked his lips and waved his hand. People of the Whirlwind Martial School, listen up. Kill them all. Do not leave a single one alive. Kill. None of the warriors from the Whirlwind Martial School panicked, since they had the advantage in numbers. If they could not beat the enemies, then they might as well kill themselves. Just like that, the warriors from the Whirlwind Martial School split up and attacked Yi Chun and the rest, while the warriors from the Black King Martial School continued to attack Su Danian and the warriors from the Azure Dragon Palace. Deputy Leader Yi is here. Everyone hold on. Su Danian did not know what he was feeling right now. He was excited, surprised, and happy. He had not felt as many emotions as he did right now. Haha, we have hope now. Brothers, hold on for a while longer. Compared to Su Danian, the others were so emotional that they even shed tears. From despair to a trace of hope, that trace of hope was shattered again, sinking them into an even deeper despair. However, amidst this deathly silence, Yi Chun had brought them a ray of hope. Right at this moment, Yi Chun's image had been deeply imprinted in everyone's hearts. Years later, they might forget about today's battle, but they would never forget Yi Chun, because Yi Chun had already become a part of their lives. If the potential that could burst out in despair was huge, then when hope appeared, the potential that could burst out would be even more shocking. All of them did not care about their injuries and overdraft their own lives. They only had one thought, and that was to survive. Rumble. The Golden Dragon battle chariot's 4 huge wheels were rolling, leaving a clear mark in the sky that did not disappear for a long time. Almost 300 warriors followed closely behind the battle chariot, rushing towards the incoming warriors. They were not afraid at all, because Yi Chun had brought them too much shock. With Yi Chun there, they believed that the victory would be theirs. With Yi Chun there, they would be invincible. Boom, 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 boom. Before they even made contact, the attacks had already clashed. Yi Chun's side had suffered a small loss, losing dozens of warriors while none of the warriors from the Whirlwind Martial School had died. Haha. Kill them all. The warriors from the Whirlwind Martial School were so proud that they had already killed dozens of warriors from the other side, which had boosted their morale. Yi Chun's expression did not change at all. He put his Thunder Disaster sword back into its scabbard and raised both of his hands. Shoo! 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 Beams of green lotus sword chi shot out like beams of light. Each of Yi Chun's fingers was equivalent to a top master level warrior's full power attack. 10 fingers meant 10 people, and with the power of 10 people, the amount of damage they could do was equal to dozens of normal Sea of Souls realm warriors. All of a sudden, Yi Chen's side had suppressed the other side, and the golden dragon battle chariot continued to rush forward. 10 miles. 5 miles. 3 miles. Stop them. The leader of the Whirlwind Martial School was shocked as he yelled. Speed up. Yi Chen took over the control of the golden dragon battle chariot, pushing his soul power and Zhen Yuan at the same time. The golden dragon battle chariot's speed doubled as it rushed into the enemy's camp, tearing open a bloody path. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.